Welcome. So, you've definitely heard the arguments about Taiwan's sovereignty. But what if the real key to understanding it isn't just in today's politics, but buried in the fine print of some really old legal documents? Today, we're going to dig into a fascinating legal argument called the theory of undetermined status, and we're going straight to the source material to see what it's all about.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll lay out China's foundational claim. Then, we're going to look at a surprising break in that historical narrative. We'll dive deep into the post-war treaties that created a kind of legal mystery, see how that chaos plays out today, and wrap it all up with the one big principle that could decide everything. Let's get into it.
To really get to the heart of this, we have to start with the official claim from the People's Republic of China. And you need to know, this isn't just a political talking point. It is literally written into their law. And there it is, straight from their 2005 anti-secession law. This is the bedrock of their entire argument, and it couldn't be clearer. There is one China, Taiwan is part of it, and from their perspective, that is simply not up for debate. But that whole idea of an unbroken chain of sovereignty? Well, it hits a pretty massive snag when you actually look at the legal record. And the entire counterargument gets incredibly specific, hinging on a single treaty from way back in 1895.
This is where international law really enters the picture. Look, the Qing Empire definitely controlled Taiwan before this, but something legally definitive happened in 1895 that changed the game entirely.
That phrase, in perpetuity, is absolutely everything here. In the language of international treaties, this isn't a lease. It's not a loan. It's a permanent handover. Think of it like selling your house. You sign the deed, it's not yours anymore. From a legal standpoint, the chain of sovereignty was definitively snapped and passed to Japan.
Okay, so that raises a huge question, right? If Japan legally owned Taiwan, what happened after they lost World War II? This brings us right to the heart of the theory of undetermined status, and it all comes down to the fine print, or lack thereof, in the post-war treaties.
Now, before we look at the documents themselves, we have to get this one crucial distinction straight. You've got wartime declarations, like from Cairo and Potsdam. Think of those as a press release about your goals. Here's what we intend to do after we win. They're powerful, sure, but they are not a legally binding contract that can transfer territory. For that, you need a formal peace treaty.
And this is where it all clicks into place. On the left, you've got the wartime promises, the intention to give Taiwan back. But on the right, you have the actual legally binding document that settled the war with Japan. And in that document, Japan gives up its claim to Taiwan. But, and this is the absolute key to everything, it never says who it's giving it to.
And that is the legal vacuum at the center of this theory. The one treaty that could have clearly transferred Taiwan's ownership just didn't. Japan gave up the title, but no new owner was written on the deed. This massive ambiguity is the entire foundation for the theory of undetermined status.
So how did this weird legal ambiguity from the 1950s lead to the political reality we see today? Well, after the Chinese Civil War, you suddenly had two governments, which eventually led to a very famous and very widely misunderstood UN resolution.
This recent quote from Taiwan's president really lays out the modern reality on the ground. The argument is that the government in Taiwan, the Republic of China, is already its own sovereign state. It's not part of the People's Republic of China. And let's be honest, this has been the status quo for more than 75 years.
Now, when you hear that argument, the PRC will often counter by pointing to UN Resolution 2758 from 1971. They use it as proof that the UN already settled the Taiwan issue. But let's take a closer look at what that resolution actually did, because its purpose was incredibly narrow.
You see, the resolution was purely about representation. It answered one simple question: who gets to sit in the chair at the United Nations that says China? It decided the PRC would get that seat, not the ROC. The resolution never even mentions Taiwan's sovereignty, let alone tries to transfer its ownership. It was about the nameplate on the desk, not the deed to the land.
So, if the old treaties left a giant question mark, how is Taiwan's future supposed to be decided in the 21st century? This is where the whole argument shifts away from dusty old documents and toward a core principle of modern international law: self-determination.
The principle of self-determination, or Jumin Chichue. This idea completely flips the script. Instead of asking who owned this land in the past, it asks a much more powerful question. What do the people who actually live there now want for their own future? It puts sovereignty in the hands of the people being governed. And you can see this principle playing out every single day in Taiwan's vibrant and diverse political scene. I mean, you have the full spectrum of views. You've got people who want to create a brand new Republic of Taiwan, others who believe the current Republic of China is already independent, a huge group that just wants to maintain the status quo, and yes, a smaller group that favors eventual unification. The very existence of this open debate is self-determination in action.
So, at the end of the day, it really all boils down to this one question. In the 21st century, what matters more? Historical claims and the ambiguous wording of old treaties, or the democratic will of the 23 million people who live there today? That's the real debate. Thanks for joining me.